What's up, everybody? I go by the name of Domo.
And I go by the name of Yoshiko.
We sit with entrepreneurs and artists across disciplines to share their stories, insight, and gems. Their journey will inspire you to think about community and your own narrative, how it shapes who you are, and what your legacy will be.
You're listening to No Blueprint.
No Blueprint.
To No Blueprint.
To No Blueprint.
You are listening to No Blueprint.
My name is Lauren Iida.
If you could name a biography or a book that was about your life, what would it be?
I thought about this a lot. I think it would have to do with Two Roads, the Robert Frost poem about two roads diverging in a yellow wood. Because I've always taken the road less traveled, and I don't regret it.
Oh, can you expand on that?
Actually, a side note, the poem, I had this really inspiring teacher in high school, Mr. Kelly, in 9th grade at Shorewood High School. And he made us all memorize the poem by Robert Frost. And he was like, okay, you have to memorize it and you'll be tested individually on it. And if you don't memorize it and say it exactly right, you'll fail the class.
Oh my gosh.
And so we were all stressed out, you know. So I went home and I memorized it. And it's about a person walking through the forest and they come across two split in the road, and one looks like it's obviously been traveled on a lot and the other one looks like it hasn't been. And the person chooses to take the one that's less traveled, and that has made all the difference, he says. And so we all memorized it. Everyone in the class memorized it. And then the last day of school, he was like, yeah, I was just kidding. I'm not going to test you on it. But it worked because he forced everyone to memorize it. And the poem has really stuck with me just as a metaphor for my life, because I have often taken the road less traveled, and it's led me a lot of places that I'm really happy I ended up.
Nice. Do you remember the poem?
Yep. Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, go for it.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, though having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. I shall be saying this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I chose the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Wow.
Look at that.
See, Domo and I probably couldn't tell you if you were right or wrong. We wouldn't know.
Right.
But that's amazing.
Sitting at home with it in front of them,
what?
I may have made some small mistakes.
Yes.
I like Shel Silverstein.
Yeah. Me too.
Sorry, I was just trying to make a joke.
If you are wondering, my co-host today is Tey Thach.
Hi.
Who are you?
I'm just a person who is your friend. I would say you're my friend, Domo.
Yeah,
I used to supervise Domo. He used to work with me at the ECC, the Samuel E.
They
Kelly.
don't need to know all of that.
Oh, sorry. We used to fight a lot, but now we're better now.
Absolutely.
Now that I'm not his boss and he's not my boss.
And it's like two Geminis, so it's like four personalities always like clashing. But as it pertains to No Blueprint, Tey is the amazing individual that holds down all of the camera work this season and a lot of the behind the scenes work, and is also the person that introduced me to Lauren Iida.
Yes.
I almost said Iida, but it's not Iida, it's Iida.
Iida. I-I-D-A.
Yes. Where were you born?
Redmond, Washington. Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Seattle.
No one knows where Redmond is.
Sorry, Redmond.
You can shout out Redmond. I feel like enough of our listeners are local that they'll know Redmond.
I have no connection to Redmond except for that I was born there.
That was the hospital that
that was nearby.
Where'd you grow? So did you grow up in Seattle?
I grew up mostly in Seattle, in many different parts of Seattle.
Okay.
Yes. I moved around a lot when I was a kid.
Okay.
All the way from Bothell to Queen Anne.
Got it. Mm-hmm. What was that like?
Hectic.
Was there a particular reason?
Not really. I mean, we just moved around a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Where'd you go to high school?
Shorewood. Well, I went to Shorewood for 1 year.
Uh-huh.
I went to Shorewood for 1 year, and then I went to Switzerland for 1 year.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, I went on exchange to Switzerland when I was 16.
Yeah.
Oh, I went to Shorewood for 2 years, and then I went to my junior year. I went to Switzerland for a year. Mr. Kelly, this very influential teacher.
Dang, he dropped a poem on you, and he sent you to Switzerland.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Who is this man?
He's amazing.
We need to interview Mr. Kelly.
I would love to reconnect with Mr. Kelly.
Drop that in.
Yeah. He was part of the Rotary Club. The Rotary Club sponsored students to go to other countries. And so I ended up going to Switzerland for a year.
What did your parents think about you going to Switzerland?
My mother was, they were both really supportive, actually, because Switzerland is like the safest country that you could possibly ever go to.
Okay.
I mean, I was 16 years old. I was living with a host family, but they weren't that worried. I mean, at least they didn't seem that worried about me. It is literally like the safest country ever. So, yeah, it was a great time. But to answer your question, I also came back, and then my senior year, I actually am a graduate of Liberty Bell High School in Twisp, Washington.
Where's Twisp, Washington?
That's right. No one knows where Twisp, Washington
Where's
is.
Twisp, Washington?
It's in the North Cascades.
Wow.
In the Medhow Valley.
Got it.
It's smaller than Ellensburg.
Where was Shorewood, Washington? Shorewood High School, I mean.
Shoreline
High School. Oh, Shorewood High School is in Shoreline.
Yeah,
Got it.
on this side.
Got it.
Wow.
Twisp, Washington. Yeah. All right. From Twisp.
From Shoreline to Switzerland to Twisp.
So wait, when you got back from Switzerland?
I got back from Switzerland. I spent my whole junior year there studying German. I went to like normal high school. It was really funny. Okay. I think the only classes I passed were English, art, and PE. And Spanish. Yeah, I passed Spanish.
Wow.
So you kind of got that world perspective pretty young, right?
Well, yeah, and so going back to my parents' opinion of me traveling abroad for a year when I was 16, my mother has always loved to travel, and she was really influential in my love of travel. Mm-hmm. So when I was 9 years old, she became she volunteered to be a chaperone for my aunt's Spanish class, traveling from Yakima, Washington to Spain for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so I got to tag along as a 9-year-old.
Wow.
Wait, who was in Yakima?
My aunt was a Spanish teacher in Yakima,
Nice.
And she was taking her class to Spain for 2 weeks.
That's dope.
And my mom got to be the chaperone.
Wow, they got to go to Spain. We went to like prison to like see. These are how, if you break the law, this is where you're gonna go. That's where. Spanish class? No, not for my Spanish class. No, like just for like. No, not for a Spanish class. This is like in 5th grade. This is in Florida, and like
listen, you didn't even have to tell us it was in Florida, because I'm sure everyone listening could guess that you grew up in Florida by going to prison.
Yeah, no. What do you call prison?
That's definitely a Florida thing.
Youth jail. We went to like a youth jail. That was like so traumatic. Anyways, sorry. That's awesome.
On some scared straight shit?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Okay, sorry.
So I got to go to Spain while you were in jail. I was in Spain, and I just was. My brain was turned inside out. I was like, "This is amazing," and I'm 33 years old now. Yeah. I still remember very, very clearly everything we did, the names of every cathedral we went into, exactly what they looked like. Yeah. Like I was really, really influenced by that.
How many generations had your family been in the U.S.?
My great-grandparents both immigrated from Fukushima.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And my great-grandmother was a picture bride. So my great-grandfather came over first, a little bit before 1900.
Wait, what's a picture bride?
Oh, yeah.
He came over first, and he became a migrant fruit picker, along with a lot of other Japanese men. Mm-hmm. And then once they had enough money, they would send for a wife, but they wouldn't know that wife before. They would pick them out of a catalog, basically, or maybe with the help of a matchmaker, but they had not met before.
Okay.
And she came over, and so one really hilarious thing is that they had like the whoever was on this side in the California side had one suit, like a nice suit, right? And every man who wanted to
had to sit a picture in that suit,
put the suit on,
stop it, fine,
and had like a Roman pedestal with like an ornate design and a roll of paper that was supposed to look like a diploma. And like some ivy like cascading down, painted onto a canvas backdrop.
Yeah.
And every man would pose looking like a scholar. And then that photo would get sent on a boat to Japan. And then all the women would swoon and be like, I want that one. And then they would
just deception,
they would pack
all
up
over.
and say goodbye to their
entire family,
their lives, their village, get on a boat for a month.
To find out that this dude didn't even own that suit.
That's
nor
right.
did he have a diploma.
That Japanese people were not allowed to own land.
Oh, yeah.
And so she shows up, and she's been ill with 100 other seasick women in the bottom of a boat for a month. And she's like, oh, finally, my rich husband is gonna
come pick me up.
And he lives in a tent in a field on an orchard. With like 20 other men.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yo.
And this is your great grandparents.
My great grandmother.
Wow.
Yeah. She never learned English.
Wow.
She was like.
I feel like this could.
She was pretty tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never met her.
That's a crazy.
I feel like this could be a whole podcast.
I was about to say.
I kind of want to dig deeper, but I know we got to move on.
Right. That's such a crazy story.
So my grandmother, who's just turned 99 years old. She has that photo, the original photo of him in that suit with his scroll.
Crazy.
And she has photos of my great grandmother, and her photo album spans from that first photo, the first photo of any of my relatives in America, to like now.
Right.
So
that's
all
crazy.
Through internment.
Wow.
She's got lots of photos from inside
the camp. Wow.
That's from her life in San Francisco in the 30s, working for the World's Fair and the Japanese Pavilion. Wow. So I use a lot of those in my artwork.
Nice. Did you know that you were going to university afterwards? Did you have an option? Did you?
Not really. I didn't know that I was going. I didn't know what I was doing. I enrolled in community college. I didn't actually end up going into a bachelor degree program for about 4 years after I graduated high school. Yeah. I was sort of waiting tables and like floating around and like not really doing much with my art. Sorta, not really. And then I started going to Cornish, but it's really expensive. So I was going part-time. I had to work part-time. And then I had to wait for all this financial aid, but I wasn't old enough to be considered an independent.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah,
21
blah.
or something.
It's 25.
Yeah, independent is 25. Because you get off your parents' insurance then.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Which is crazy. So it took me a while to even enter Cornish. I did get a couple scholarships and some assistance from Cornish, and that was good. But I wasn't like, it was hard. It was really hard the first year and a half or so. And then my Brazilian friend from Switzerland, Luara, she called me up and she was like, hey, I found a job for you in Australia. And I was like, okay. And I left.
You went to Australia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So she
And this is in the middle of Cornish.
This is a year and a half of part-time Cornish.
Oh, wow.
If I had continued to go part-time, it probably would have taken me maybe as long as it did take me. But I mean, it was so, I just wasn't, it was too expensive.
Yeah.
I was miserable.
For folks who don't know, what is Cornish?
Cornish College of the Arts. It's, it's like a really upscale, really prestigious Pacific Northwest. So Luana was like, hey, you want to come to Australia? I found a job for you. And so I was like, yeah, sure. So anyway, she had befriended her professor at the Australian National University. He had a son who was half Brazilian. That's why they were friends. Anyway, Andre became my new job. He was 6 years old, and I was his nanny, his live-in nanny for like 9 months.
Wow.
And that was interesting. I lived in Canberra, in the capital, which is notoriously boring.
Okay.
Beautiful. And Australia was interesting. And again, I was just itching to find the next way to expatriate. I'm always like, I want to live somewhere else.
Wow.
And so I really enjoyed that. It was a good time. Yeah. And then all my friends down there said, you should go to Southeast Asia before you go home. Because the plan was just for me to live out my 1 year visa and then go home back to Seattle. But they were like, you should go to Southeast Asia. So I bought a ticket to Thailand because the exchange student who had replaced me when I was in Switzerland was Thai. His name was A. So I went to visit A and his family in Thailand. I bought a ticket to visit A and his family in Thailand. But the day that my ticket was, the red shirt, yellow shirt protests
in
I remember Bangkok
that.
happened to shut down the airport.
Oh.
And so the airline was like, okay, where do you want to go instead? We'll refund your ticket. You can go anywhere you want, really. And so I had a friend in Australia who had a friend in Phnom Penh who's also Australian. He's a film producer and videographer. And she called him and said, hey, I'm going to send my friend to you. Can you show her around? And he said yes. So he met me at the airport. He drove a vintage bright orange Vespa.
Okay.
What year is this? Can you?
2008.
2008. Okay.
With a big Al Pacino sticker on the front. And he was like, okay, hop on. I had literally a tiny backpack.
Wow.
Okay.
I was planning on staying for 2 weeks total in Southeast Asia. And we're zooming through traffic, through Phnom Penh. I can still hear the sounds and smell the smells. And I remember exactly how that felt. It was hot. And I'm like hanging on for dear life. With a stranger. I've basically never ridden a motorcycle before. I never met this person before. His name's Duff. Michael Duff, yeah.
Michael Duff.
Yeah, so we're zooming through traffic, and and he showed me around, and I had from the very beginning a non-tourist experience of Cambodia.
Wow.
Which I think probably helped me fall in love with it quicker, because I was just from the beginning like, oh, this is how you live here. This is how we're all living here.
Yeah.
And Michael Duff introduced me to all of his friends, and yeah, it was really fun. So my 2-week vacation turned into 2 years.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't actually go back. I just didn't get on the plane.
Wow.
I did go to Thailand eventually and visited A, and that was really fun too, but I already had fallen in love with Cambodia.
So this was 2008 to 2010.
Yes.
Wow.
So yeah,
you were making me nervous. I was like, because I'm a person who needs like to plan everything.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, wow, you're just like living it up and just
the
free.
opposite of you.
Wow,
Okay.
that's
not
admirable.
Not a planner. So I discovered in myself that I really had to do something to give back to the community if I was going to live in that community.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I decided I decided that moment to look around for a project that I could manage myself, that I could fundraise for myself, that I could be completely in charge of.
Yeah.
And I came across, through a friend, a group of women who had recently lost their funding for their sewing programs through a nonprofit called Cambodia Volunteers for Community Development, CVCD. And so they had been trained by CVCD to sew, but then that section of their program didn't have money anymore. So all of these women, there were 5 young women. They were between the ages of 20 and 25. And I, at this time, was like 24 years old.
Yeah.
So they were my age. And they were all from rural areas. And they had come to study. Their families were like, yes, we don't want to feed you. We can't really afford to feed you. They were in really, really poor rural areas where they came from. So, yes, this is a good opportunity. You go, get a skill. We don't have to feed you. And so these women had learned how to sew, and their teacher also was out of a job now. Her name is Meng Lai.
Yeah.
So Meng Lai said, I'm going to start a business. So she had some seed money saved up to open a shop front where she employed all these women, these 5 women, to be seamstresses just for any client. So like custom tailored clothing is like a big thing in Cambodia. So in Cambodia, I, at that time, 15 pounds ago, almost 10 years ago.
15 pounds?
15 pounds ago and almost 10 years ago was like an extra large clothing size in Cambodia.
Oh.
So I got an office job working for a bookshop, and I had to have like nice clothes.
Yeah.
And so I would go to the market and walk up to each stall and just stand in front and go like this and be like, you got anything for me? And they would laugh at me and be like, no! And then send me to the next one. Because I'm so large.
Big over there. Large over there in
So
Cambodian
large
context.
in Cambodia.
Not large here. Nothing wrong with being large anyways, but...
Anyway, can't find anything that fits me at all. So I have to go to a custom tailor shop.
Yeah.
So I go to this shop and I start getting all my clothes tailored. And I'm like learning about their story, and this is cool. Meng Lai's taking control of her own destiny and helping these women and stuff. And so I ordered some clothes, and then I was like, oh, maybe this is my project, right? So Meng Lai was like, how do I make my business better? How do I get foreign customers? And I was like, well, you need to be making things that foreigners like to wear. So natural fibers, cotton, breathable, more mute colors like linen, cotton.
Not like lime green and bright pink.
Less Hello Kitty, less sequins. And so I basically went to the market and bought a bunch of fabric. Wow. And then I took elements from my own clothes, because I'm not a clothing designer. I'm an artist, but I'm not a clothing designer. So I was like, I like this sleeve over here, and I like this, put it with this length and this buttons or whatever. And I designed a line of women's apparel.
Nice.
So they sewed the women's apparel, and then I paid them a salary. At that point, I paid them a salary. I was able to pay them a salary. So before me, they were charging $5 for a custom-made dress, including material.
$5?
$5.
Oh my gosh.
For a dress. Yeah. And I was charging $28 to $35 for a dress to my customers, and I wasn't taking anything. So all the money was going back into a salary pool for the 5 women and Meng Lai. And so I was able to pay them like a fair wage right away. And it was great.
So you're not only an artist, you have like a business mindset as well.
Have a business
That's
mind,
awesome.
which I didn't know before this project.
Right.
Yeah.
And I learned everything the hard way. But yes, I have a lot of strong women in my family who are independent business owners. My aunts and my mother and my other aunt. And
Wow.
So I've had a lot of role models, whether I knew it or not at the time. Those things definitely influenced me.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so then Meng Lai, after like 2 months, I realized she's just taking all the money and putting it in her own pocket.
Oh no.
And I was like, I'm like trying to figure out,
And it's kind of awkward, right? Because you know her, she's probably older.
Yeah, she's older than me.
Yeah. So there's this cultural thing where you're like, do I call it out?
Scammer.
Oh, I didn't have any question about whether or not.
Oh, you're like, I'm gonna call her out.
No, I just wanted to make sure that what was happening was real.
Yeah.
That I knew what was happening. I also started working with Sambo, my friend Sambo, who's this young woman, amazing young woman, Cambodian. I met her in the bus on the way back from Battambang one time in 2008. And she became my business manager, translator. At that time, I didn't really speak Khmer. And so, anyway, turned out Meng Lai was just pocketing all the money. So, again, I went back to the drawing board and I was like, do I stop working with these people altogether? Do I start my own shop?
Yeah.
Do I go back to America and wash my hands of this? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna start my own shop. So I called my friend and I was like, can you please buy me a ticket? I don't have any money. I want a plane ticket to come to America to fundraise for this idea I have. So he bought me a ticket.
A great friend.
For 10 days. I came back for 10 days to Seattle, and I literally told every single person that I encountered that I wanted to start the sewing shop and why, and I wanted to help these young women. and I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that, and showed pictures of the dresses. I brought a suitcase full of stuff over and sold as much of it as I could, had trunk sales, and I raised $2,000 in 10 days. And then I went back to Cambodia and I found a place to rent and I opened a shop. But it's empty. It's just an empty shop front, right?
How old were you
in
now?
an alley, 24.
24, okay.
Ish. Yeah, 24, 25 maybe. 24. This is like 2009. So then I had to find a way to get the girls to know that I was serious. To leave Meng Lai without Meng Lai getting suspicious.
Drama. This is some drama.
Or following or whatever. And then it's a big ethical question, right? Do I walk away from these women who are clearly being exploited by Meng Lai? Or do I steal Meng Lai's livelihood?
Oh, yeah.
Sips tea.
And so I made the choice at the time to steal all her employees. So I called one. We had one little brick phone between the 5 of them, whatever, and one by one they came, but they were so worried. They were like, we don't have the 50 cents to take the motorbike taxi across town from our place to your place. And that was like their biggest worry. And they literally came with little plastic bags. They had like one change of clothes, and like they were all sharing a toothbrush, and it was they were in bad shape. And one of them had been clearly seriously sexually abused. And I didn't really get that before. Like, I didn't have enough one-on-one time with her that I really noticed. And I think moving and stuff brought out some of that trauma. So she would eventually we got sewing machines. We took out a microloan. They took out a microloan that I connected them with through kiva.org and AMK. And so they had enough money to each buy their own sewing machine and a overlocker and some scissors and whatever. And then the money that I raised bought fabric and started us going, put the deposit down on the rental space and stuff. So anyway, this one woman, Suraylak, that's her name. Suraylak would sit at the sewing machine all day and cry. She was so traumatized. And she wouldn't even stand outside the front door by herself during the day because she was afraid of getting kidnapped or that somebody crazy would approach her. I don't know what she was really afraid of. And again, at this time, I didn't speak Khmer enough to have a conversation with her, and nobody really wanted to ask, and she didn't really say anything. So we just were there for her and just like, ate meals together. They all slept there. We all ate together. I lived above the shop on the top floor. And we just hoped that we would avoid Meng Lai at the fabric shop, at the fabric area of the market, and continue to make these clothes. And eventually we opened a shop in Siem Reap near the temples of Angkor Wat, in the tourist area, with another friend of mine. And we also started exporting to the United States, and it sustained 5 women, 5 seamstresses, and Sambo at fair wages for about 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you navigate like the internal American capitalist mindset as you're like trying to run a business? Because you still had to pay rent, you still had to like pay your employees at fair wage, you still had to pay yourself. Like how did you navigate all of that along with like just the internal moral conflict between like taking this woman's livelihood?
I don't know how to answer that. I don't know if I really understand the question.
So like,
I didn't take anything for myself at all. I didn't pay. I paid my rent with the money, and I also ate the food that I bought for them. Yeah. But I was in serious financial ruin when I came back from all that. I mean, I was young and I didn't know better, and I didn't care. Right. You know, I was like, I don't need stuff. I'm 24. Right. You know, I didn't draw a salary.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay.
I did somehow live on some part of that, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, but it was just food and drink and a room to sleep in.
Have you ever run into Meng Lai?
No.
She's still out there somewhere.
She's still out there somewhere.
Yeah. And I did confront her before I stole her employees. I did say, I think you're stealing from them.
Yeah.
I would like you to not do that anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
But 5 against
one.
And
they're they're coming to you with the kind of like the facts, like, hey, this is what's happening.
It's like a moral thing. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
So
that's interesting because like it is inherently an American thing to do, like, yet it's also inherently a like right versus wrong thing of you're not paying these employees. I am going to pay these employees and I'm going to do right, but now you're like internally have to do that and you have to sit on that and like move forward and do right by these women because now they're your they're your full responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
That was I think that's really it was a bold move. I think that was a good move.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would do it again.
Right. Say more about that.
I don't think that I would do that again. But
at 24, you wouldn't take responsibility of 5 women?
No. I mean, I'm glad I did it. I don't regret that at all. But if the same opportunity presented itself now, I don't think I would do it. Mm-hmm. But I still do a lot of things that people find really risky in terms of that. When I want to help somebody, when I find somebody who I feel like I can help in some way, I tend to take more risks on that. And sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And that's something that I've had to really... I mean, of course, sometimes I've been absolutely devastated. I've gotten completely cheated by people who I've helped a lot.
I'm sure. So fast forward, you have an art space
in Kampot.
Yes, I currently have what I'm calling an open studio, which is my workspace. And I work with a Cambodian artist, an emerging artist called Chan Poon, named Chan Poon. And we open the doors on every Wednesday and most Sundays and most Saturdays to kind of an ever-growing network of artists who live in the area. They're from France, Australia, Thailand, the Netherlands. They're Cambodian American. They're Cambodian from Cambodia. They're at all levels of skill of art and craft. Nice. And this is pretty new, actually, that I've tried this model where I just open the doors and invite people to come. So there's no charge to anyone. They can use materials that I have. Some have been donated. And we just make art together. So, we have dancers, we have spoken word artists, we have poets, we have painters, we have crocheters.
And you recently did a show open, what'd you call it?
It's like an exhibit a couple months ago.
Yes.
100 aspects of the moon.
Yes.
And this is kind of where I kind of want to talk about the paper cutting, right?
Yes.
How did you choose paper cutting as your medium?
I chose paper cutting as my medium because of poverty. Because I was an oil painter. Before I went to Cambodia, I was an oil painter at Cornish. And I went to Cambodia for 2 years and did all these things I told you about where I took no salary for myself. So when I came back, I was living in a 1-bedroom basement apartment with a roommate. And I could not buy oil paints. I could not suffocate myself in that little apartment when I was using oil paints.
And, so out of necessity. So I was like, I have all these great photos, these great images, these great gestures, these great feelings, these great experiences I want to share through my art with everyone. But I can't show them as photos because the photos, we have these stupid little point and shoot digital cameras back then. They're not like art quality. And so it's like, how can I translate these images into something else that's not oil paint? And then I was like, what's simpler? And the most simple thing you can possibly make art with is to
by taking away pieces out of a blank sheet of white paper. So that's what I started doing, based on my photographs that I had been taking in Cambodia for 2 years. And then that eventually moved into my first like real put together exhibition was in 2014 at the Cornish Gallery, Cornish Alumni Gallery, which was called Castle Rock is for Lovers. Castle Rock was a place, was a little hill outside of the Tule Lake internment camp where my family was during World War II, where the guards eventually let young lovers go. So it was like you could go for a day hike and the guards would let you out because you're in the middle of the desert and you're not going to go anywhere. So they would let people go to the top of Castle Rock, and that's where my 99-year-old grandmother's husband courted her on top of Castle Rock.
Oh, wow.
And she's got photos from up there of her and her friends picnicking on top of this hill looking back down at the barracks.
Wow.
And so I made a whole exhibition called Castle Rock is for Lovers.
And this is your first exhibit for paper cut?
Yeah, that was my first real exhibition for paper cut.
Nice. Wait, did you graduate from Cornish?
I did. I went back to Cornish after I came back to the States in 2010.
Okay.
It took me another 4 years. So it took me another... How long did it take me? I don't know. I think I graduated in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. I was like, wait, alumni?
Yeah, 2014. Yeah.
She's still taking classes there part time.
No. I finished. I have the diploma.
Just kidding. Where do we go on from here?
Let's talk about the Memory Net. That's my exhibition that's happening now.
Yeah.
So, and the Memory Net. So the Memory Net is the original Memory Net was a 30-foot long paper cut piece. It's one sheet of paper, and it's like a fishing net, and it contains objects, which I correlate with a specific memory or person, pretty much. So I created a language of objects with a key. So each person got a key when they walked into the gallery at Art Exchange Gallery in Pioneer Square. I debuted it in 2017. And you can see like the champa flower, like the plumeria flower means childhood innocence, for example. Or the reading glasses mean like persevering and self-educating despite hardship. So like homage to my relatives who still studied inside the internment camps, or still, made things, made crafts, had clubs, had hobbies inside the camps. Went to school, had social clubs and stuff like that. And also to my friends who survived the Khmer Rouge, who literally risked their lives to go out at night and go to a known educated person's house and study French and chemistry, like my Uncle Nan. And like the severed duck head means corruption, and the scissors mean a lack of forgiveness, and et cetera, et cetera. So all these objects that you find in my memory net have to do with some specific memory or experience or person. And so the way that they're arranged within the net or within other two-dimensional pieces, like wall-hanging pieces, tells a story about that person or about that time, that experience. And so I'm recreating the memory net starting July 28th, this coming Saturday, and finishing by August 11th.
It's a couple days.
So August 11th will be the closing reception of the Memory Net project this time. So I'm opening the doors to this little gallery space in Ballard called the Vestibule. It's in North Ballard, and it's a live work space. It's actually an Airbnb. So it's like this little room, and I'm going to have my table and my knife and this 30-foot long piece of paper, and I'm just going to start cutting. And I'm inviting the public, my community, my friends, and it's open to anyone to come contribute an object that they would like to see in my net that reminds them of home. So this net is specifically about home. And it comes from me living between Seattle and Cambodia. Like, I'm constantly missing Cambodia when I'm in Seattle, and I'm constantly missing Seattle when I'm in Cambodia. And I just keep going around and around and around, but that's becomes my life. So I love them both equally, and I miss people from here when I'm there and the other way around. So I want to know what home means to my community, and my community being anybody that walks in the door and comes to spend time with me. So you can write down your object, or you can draw your object, and just like 1 or 2 sentences about why you chose that object and what it means to you regarding home, why it reminds you of something. Could be a figurative place called home, or a person, or a real place, or a previous home, or something you've lost that you wish you had. I'm also officially represented by Art Exchange Gallery in Pioneer Square, so you can always see my art there.
Hey,
awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What advice would you give folks who were looking to do something similar and go to a different country and like just work and do as artists, of course?
I would say throw away all your apprehensions and dive in head first.
Yeah.
Do everything. Take every opportunity to get to know people, to try something new, to take a risk. I mean, I personally think that in America, on the whole, we're so afraid to branch out of our health insurance, our safety precautions, our rigid way of believing about the world. We're a big country. We aren't often forced to go outside of our country to see or do anything, because we basically have everything we quote unquote need in America. And I meet out of all the developed Western countries, pretty much I meet a surprisingly small amount of Americans who are traveling in Southeast Asia, who are living in Southeast Asia. And I find that Americans on the whole are really afraid they couldn't imagine expatriating. It's like there's some people who could expatriate and some people who just don't do that, you know?
Yeah.
But
now the current administration, you might see more.
Yes, that is true. Actually, no, that is really true. A lot of people recently have told me that they have serious plans to
Canada,
leave the country. Yeah, or farther away. When you dive deeper into a foreign culture, when you actually spend more than 2 weeks there or more than a month there consecutively, you really start to learn about the place. But you don't know anything about any place that you visit for 6 months or less, in my opinion.
Right.
And so, but it can be truly a magical experience to throw away all your preconceived notions of what humans do, what humans think, how humans live. And you really start to realize that there are as many ways of living a life as there are humans on the planet. Every single person is trying for the same basic things, security, happiness, family, financial security, physical health, or whatever. But everyone's going about it in a completely different way. And some things that we couldn't imagine letting go of or couldn't imagine doing, other people are doing and letting go of every day. And so when now I find myself, my life is forever changed by Cambodia. I will never be the same. And I live in a way that is between cultures. Truly.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a foreigner in both places.
Absolutely. That's real.
Yeah.
And then we didn't talk about your book.
Books.
One more thing I want to add, though, is that I can't stress enough when you come across a social issue in a foreign country that you think you can help with, the first thing to do is to shut your mouth and sit down and listen.
Speaking from experience.
You don't want to be the savior?
Yeah. Cambodia is full of saviors.
Oh, for sure. I was there.
I have been the savior. I've tried to be the savior. And obviously that didn't work out from all the stories I've just told you. Being the savior is not the point. You have to ask yourself honest questions about why you're doing it. Are you doing it for selfish reasons? Are you doing it for truly helpful reasons? And most importantly, ask the people that you're quote unquote trying to help what they actually need.
Absolutely.
Your time in Cambodia, do you come across a lot of expatriates? Is it called expats? Expats and nonprofits that you kind of just butt heads with, or do you avoid them if you think they're problematic? What is that relationship like? Is there a relationship?
I will never work for any nonprofit ever again besides the nonprofit that I founded, which is the Antipodes Collective. And so we're a 501c3. And when I started out, I also, in addition to creating high quality learning materials for Cambodian children, I also wanted to have this English and art program in this rural area, and it just didn't work out. So even though I really wanted it to work out, it didn't work out, and I had to let it go. I had to say goodbye to that whole portion of my mission with my nonprofit, because it wasn't working. And I think that's also really important. Be adaptable. Being adaptable is extremely important. You may want to save all the prostitutes in Cambodia from prostitution, but you can't. So the Antipodes Collective brings together artists and writers from around the world to create high quality learning materials for Cambodian children. Because of Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge genocide in the late 1970s, there really aren't very many, relatively, high quality learning materials, especially bilingual ones, which help Cambodian children learn English, basically, or just are interesting content for kids to develop a love for reading or an interest in reading. And so we in 2014 came out with our first book, which was collaboratively illustrated by a group of Cornish students and co-written by myself and Carolyn R. Hall. And then this year we published 2 more books. The first one is by a Danish author named Pil Anna Testorp. It's called Colors of Cambodia. All our books are available on Amazon. And the second book is transcribed by me. It's originally a Punong, indigenous ethnic minority folktale called Rattan Woman. And it's an ancient story, so it's been passed down orally through the generations. But this organization called the Mondulkiri Resource and Documentation Center hired me to help transcribe it so that it's in better English and grammatically correct. So I edited it, basically. And I worked with the Punong storytellers to make sure the facts were correct and, make the flow of the story more palatable for a children's book. And then I also illustrated it with my hand-cut paper and watercolor.
And it's both in Khmer and English?
So there's 2 versions of Rattan Woman. One is in English and Khmer language, and the other one is in English and Punong language, written with Cambodian letters.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Legit.
So all those books, all 100% of the proceeds benefit the Antipodes Collective and the Mondulkiri Resource and Documentation Center for Rattan Woman.
Wow.
That's awesome. That's super dope. So Diana, my fiance, her mother's parents, her grandparents, I should say, migrated from China to Cambodia, and were in camps during their family was in camps during the Khmer Rouge.
Oh, wow.
And then her father, I'm not sure his story and how his family migrated to Cambodia, but he was escaping the camps in the Khmer Rouge, and ended up going through Vietnam and Thailand before coming to the U.S. And one day I will interview him, and, or it'll be a documentary or a book or something, because it's a hell of a story.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So many incredible. Your family, I'm sure.
Right.
Well, my family's kind of different because we're in Vietnam, so I think in one aspect they felt blessed that they didn't have to go through that because they were in Vietnam. But then there's all these stories about, okay, well, we're an ethnic minority in Vietnam, whose land.
Yeah.
You can cut this out.
No, it's.
It's touchy with Cambodia and Vietnam. It's really touchy.
I was gonna say, I was like, that had to be a story within itself. And then you just get to the folks who migrated to this country during the late 70s and or just 70s/80s.
Yeah.
And that's another story in itself.
Yeah.
And so that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. This was super awesome. It's a super interesting story. I can't wait for the book.
Well, the book's right here.
No, I mean like her autobiography.
150
but
pages
that book
are
too.
already
You're
written.
doing an
Really?
autobiography? Oh.
See how I knew that?
I didn't know that. How did you know that?
Just intuition.
Oh, okay.
You know. Males got that too sometimes. Not all of us are so lucky.
My name is Lauren Iida, and you're listening to No Blueprint.
Yay! If you liked what you heard, be sure to donate so we can keep going. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube, so be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment. You have no idea how much it helps. We also want to know what you think. You can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can even use the hashtag NoBlueprint. And if you're really down with the movement, you can join our Patreon account and become a patron, where you'll get exclusive content and limited edition merchandise. No Blueprint is powered by Ambassador Stories. We share stories of the people, places, and spaces that bring soul to our communities. No Blueprint is recorded at Ambassador Stories Studios and co-produced with me, Maya Aina. Hear more episodes of No Blueprint and get official No Blueprint merchandise at noblueprintpodcast.com.